At my daughter's birthday, no one showed up. Who wants to celebrate a girl with no dad? A text read. I tried to smile for her. Then a parade of motorcycles rolled in and she whispered, "Mom, that's my letter to Dad's friends." I was standing in the backyard holding a pink and gold cake with 7 candles that refused to stay lit in the wind. My daughter, Zaria, was sitting alone at the party table we decorated with glitter balloons and streamers the night before. She kept looking at the gate, waiting. I kept telling her someone would show up. No one did. I checked my phone again. Nothing. Then a message came through. Who wants to celebrate a girl with no dad? My hands started shaking. I couldn't show her that. I forced a smile and brought the cake over. She clapped quietly just for herself. I lit the candles anyway. She looked up at me and whispered, "It's okay, Mama. Maybe they just forgot." I nodded, trying to keep my voice from breaking. "Make a wish, baby." Before she could blow out the candles, we heard it. A low rumble, then louder. The sound of engines, lots of them, coming from the street. Zaria jumped up so fast her chair fell over. She grabbed my hand, eyes wide, and said, "Mom, that's my letter. That's Daddy's friends." I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. Then I saw them. A parade of motorcycles rolling toward our house. Big, loud, beautiful bikes, all of them slowing down in front of our yard. And that's when I realized my little girl hadn't given up. She had invited hope, and it showed up wearing leather jackets. My name is Ayla, and if you ask me to describe the past 2 years of my life in one word, I'd say trying. Not just hard, not just painful, but a constant daily effort to show up for my daughter when every fiber of me wanted to stay curled up in bed. I wasn't always like this. Before everything changed, life was louder, lighter. My husband, Micah, was the kind of man who brought life into every room he entered. He was a soldier, a proud veteran, and part of a motorcycle club made up of fellow servicemen. He rode with pride, served with honor, and came home every night with grease on his hands and our daughter in his arms. Then one night, he didn't come home. Micah was killed while deployed overseas. It was supposed to be a short-term mission, the kind that doesn't make headlines, but a roadside bomb doesn't care about anyone's plans. I got the call just after dinner while Zaria was brushing her teeth in the other room. That night, the sound of her tiny voice calling Mama from the bathroom shattered me. I had to walk in and pretend I wasn't falling apart. Since then, it's been the two of us, me and Zaria. She's 7 now. A soft-spoken, bright-eyed girl with her daddy's curiosity and his habit of fixing broken things, even if they weren't hers to fix. She talks about him all the time. At first, I thought it would fade. I thought kids forget or maybe learn to let go, but she hasn't. She keeps his photo in her backpack. She prays to him, and she still calls him Daddy, like he's gonna walk through the door one day. This year, she wanted a birthday party, a real one. The last 2 birthdays were quiet. Just the two of us, cake at the kitchen table. Maybe a movie if I could keep myself together. But this time, she wanted balloons. She wanted a theme. Rainbows and motorcycles, she told me, because Daddy liked both. I didn't have the heart to say no, so we planned it. I helped her make handmade invitations with glitter and stickers. We passed them out to kids in her class. She even asked the neighbors. She decorated the backyard with crayon drawings of her and Micah riding a bike through the sky. She told me, if I have a big party, maybe people will come and remember him with me. I didn't say what I was thinking, that the world doesn't always show up for kids like mine, that sometimes people pull away because grief makes them uncomfortable, that some people in this town had already started whispering behind our backs. Still, I wanted her to believe. I wanted to give her one good day. I bought the cake from her favorite bakery. I filled the yard with streamers and bright-colored chairs. I borrowed a Bluetooth speaker and made a playlist of the songs Micah used to sing in the kitchen, off-key and loud, while Zaria giggled and danced on his feet. That morning, she woke up early. She put on the sparkly dress her grandmother sent her last Christmas. She brushed her own hair. She even helped me carry the cupcakes outside. She kept looking at the driveway and asking, "How many people do you think will come, Mama?" I smiled and told her, "All the good ones." But as the hours passed, her excitement turned to confusion, then to silence. She sat at the party table, tiny legs dangling off the chair, staring at the unopened gift bags. I tried to distract her. I played music. I cut the cake early. I told her maybe they got lost or maybe their parents forgot. She didn't cry. She just nodded and whispered, "It's okay. I still had fun with you." That broke me more than anything because I knew she was lying. And then just when I thought the worst had happened, my phone buzzed, a text from another mother, someone I'd known casually at school drop-off. It read, "Who wants to celebrate a girl with no dad?" My breath caught. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the yard, but I looked at Zaria, who was still sitting so patiently, still watching the gate, still hoping, and I knew I couldn't show her that message. I had to be stronger than I felt. So I picked up the cake. I carried it over with shaking hands, and I lit the candles with the last shred of joy I could fake because that's what mothers do. We smile when it hurts. We stand tall when our knees want to buckle. We protect our children from the world even when the world is cruel. And I had no idea what was coming next. I stood next to her as she blew out the candles. Her wish was quiet, and I didn't ask what it was. I didn't have to. I knew. She wished for someone to show up, for her daddy, for people, for something that didn't feel like being left behind again. The backyard was silent. No laughter, no footsteps running through the grass, just the faint of the playlist, looping Micah's favorite old country songs. I kept smiling for her even as I felt something inside me shrinking. Zaria cut the first slice herself. She placed it on a paper plate with hearts drawn on it. She handed it to me like it was a gift, and she said, "You get the first piece, Mama, because you stayed." I almost lost it, but I nodded and thanked her like it was just any other day, like I wasn't holding back tears that wanted to fall for every empty chair around that table. She sat quietly, her party crown slipping to one side. Her small fingers fidgeted with the ends of her dress. Every few minutes, she glanced at the gate again. I kept checking my phone. Still no one. No messages. No apologies. No change. I sent a quick text to two of the parents who had said they might come. Just something light. "Hey, just checking in. Zaria keeps asking if you guys are on the way." I added a smiley face at the end to cover the sting in my voice. Only one person replied. It was one sentence. "Honestly, who wants to celebrate a girl with no dad?" I read it twice. My eyes stung. My hands clenched the phone so tightly I thought it might crack. She was 7. 7. And that was the excuse someone used to stay away from her birthday because she had lost her father because that made them uncomfortable? I looked up, and Zaria was still staring at the street. Her crown was tilted even more now, and the balloon tied to her chair had started to deflate. She wasn't crying, but her shoulders had slumped in a way that told me she had given up hope. Not just for that day, but maybe for the idea that people were ever going to come back for her. I walked over and knelt beside her. "Syria," I said softly. "You know that not everyone understands the kind of strength it takes to keep going." She looked at me and asked, "Is it because Daddy's gone?" I didn't know how to answer. I wanted to protect her from the truth, but I also didn't want to lie. "Some people don't know how to handle brave kids," I said. "You, sweetheart. You're the bravest person I know." She nodded once, then she reached under the table and pulled out a folded white envelope. It had been tucked away next to the party favors. She held it up to me without saying anything. "What's this?" I asked. "I sent it a few weeks ago," she said. "I didn't tell you because I wanted it to be a surprise." I opened the flap and found a copy of a letter in her handwriting. The spelling was messy and some words were smudged, but I could still read it clearly. "Hi, my name is Zaria. I'm turning 7. My daddy was Micah. He rode motorcycles and was in the army. He died 2 years ago, but I still love him. I saw pictures of you with him. I don't have many people coming to my birthday, but if you knew my daddy, I would love if you could come. Love, Zaria." I held the letter like it was the most fragile thing in the world. "You sent this?" I asked. "I found one of Daddy's boxes in the garage. It had a return address." I copied it onto the envelope. I didn't know if it would get there. I stared at her stunned. She hadn't waited for help. She hadn't asked for permission. She had written her heart down and sent it out into the world all by herself. I looked at the gate one more time. Still no cars, no bikes, just the soft flicker of the last candle burning out behind us. "Even if they don't come," I said, "that was a very kind and very brave thing you did." She shrugged, her voice quiet. "I just hope someone would remember Daddy." I hugged her, not knowing what else to do. I kissed the top of her head and told her, "I remember him every single day." And for the first time that afternoon, she smiled. I carried her letter inside and placed it on the kitchen counter like it was something sacred. I couldn't stop reading it. The words were simple, but they held more love than anything I'd seen in a long time. She hadn't written that letter expecting magic. She just missed her father. She wanted someone to remember him with her. That night, after the last balloon had sagged and the music had gone silent, I sat in the living room while Zaria slept curled up in her new rainbow blanket. I kept replaying the day in my mind, the empty seats, the quiet, the message on my phone. But more than anything, the thought about her letter and the fact that my daughter had done something I hadn't had the strength to do since Micah died. She reached out. I had spent the last 2 years holding everything in, locking grief behind chores and distractions. I hadn't contacted anyone from Micah's old life, not the guys he used to ride with, not the people who came to the funeral in leather jackets and boots standing in a silent row with their heads bowed. I never returned their calls. I didn't respond to the cards. I thought I was protecting Zaria, keeping her world simple and safe. But maybe I had just been keeping her isolated. Maybe I'd been doing the same to myself. I walked back into the garage, The one space I had kept mostly untouched. His boxes were still there, stacked neatly, labeled in Micah's handwriting. I opened one marked Club. Inside were old photographs, patches, bandanas, and a worn notebook with addresses and contact names. Zarya hadn't just sent her letter blindly. She had gone into this space on her own and found a name. I found the return address on an envelope she had tucked away. It belonged to someone named Cal, one of Micah's closest friends. He had stood at the front of the funeral, stone-faced, ripping a folded flag. I remembered him now. Quiet, kind eyes, built like a mountain. A man who barely spoke, but gave Micah one of the biggest hugs I'd ever seen before deployment. I stood there in the dark garage with the letter in one hand and Micah's old riding gloves in the other. The smell of oil and leather still clung to everything. I could feel him there with me, not in some supernatural way, but in the weight of the memories pressing down on my chest. That was when I made my decision. I picked up my phone and called the number written next to Cal's name. It rang 4 times. I nearly hung up. Then a deep voice answered. "This is Cal." I froze. For a second, I didn't know what to say. Then I just started talking. "Hi, Cal. You don't know me. My name is Ayla. I'm Micah's wife. I still am." But I stopped, took a breath, and started again. "My daughter, Zarya, sent a letter to you. You probably got it. I just wanted to say thank you if you read it. And if you didn't, that's okay too. I just needed you to know she misses him every day, and she's not asking for anything big. She just wanted someone who remembered him to show up." There was a pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought the call had dropped. Then Cal spoke. "I read the letter twice. I waited. She's got Micah's heart," he said. "I showed it to the guys. We've all been wondering how to reach out without stepping on your grief. We didn't want to make it harder for you. But now that she reached out, you can bet we're showing up." I didn't know what to say. I think I just whispered, "Thank you," he said. "Tell her we're proud of her. Tell her her daddy's brothers are still riding." We hung up, and I sat there on the garage floor for a long time holding Micah's gloves to my chest. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I wasn't carrying this alone, that maybe Micah had left more behind than just his memory. He had left people. He had left a legacy. And Zarya, my sweet stubborn girl, had found it. The next morning, she woke up like nothing had changed. She asked if she could have leftover cake for breakfast. I said yes. Then I told her, "I made a phone call last night. Someone read your letter." Her eyes lit up. "Did they say anything?" she asked. "They said your daddy would be proud and that they're coming." She blinked, unsure if she heard me right. "Coming here?" I smiled. "Yes, they're coming." She didn't jump or squeal. She just stood there for a second, then wrapped her arms around my waist and buried her face in my side. Her voice was quiet but steady. I knew someone would remember him. It was late afternoon when we heard the first rumble. The sun was starting to set behind the trees, casting a golden light across the quiet street. Zarya and I were still outside. She had insisted we leave the decorations up, just in case. I didn't argue. She was sitting on the porch with a cupcake in her hand, humming softly, her rainbow crown resting beside her. At first, I thought it was thunder, a low rolling sound, but the sky was clear. Then it grew louder. It wasn't thunder. It was engines, several of them. Not the high whine of cars, but deep, heavy growls that rolled through the neighborhood like a wave. Soraya's head snapped up. Her eyes widened. She stood up slowly, walking to the edge of the porch. The sound got closer. Tires rolled over pavement. Then the first bike turned the corner. A big black Harley chrome catching the light. The rider wore a worn leather vest. Behind him, another bike appeared. Then another. Then more. I lost count after 20. They filled the street in front of our house one after the other, slowing to a respectful stop. Neighbors peeked out from their windows. A few stepped outside, but no one said a word. Zarya looked up at me, stunned. "Mom," she whispered, "that's my letter." I nodded, unable to speak. The first rider dismounted and took off his helmet. It was Cal. He looked exactly like I remembered from the funeral. Taller than I thought. Quiet strength in his eyes. He walked toward us, then knelt down in front of Zarya. "You must be Micah's girl," he said gently. Zarya nodded, eyes fixed on him. Cal reached into his vest and pulled out a small patch. It was shaped like a shield with Micah's initials embroidered in gold thread. Above them, the words, "Micah's Legacy." He handed it to her. "Your daddy was one of the best men I ever knew. We rode with him. We fought beside him. When we got your letter, we knew we had to be here." Soraya looked down at the patch, then back at him. Her voice was small. "Did you really know him?" Cal smiled. "We didn't just know him. We loved him, and he loved you. He talked about you all the time, said you were the best thing he ever did." Behind him, the other riders were unpacking things. One of them rolled out a cooler full of soda and juice boxes. Another brought a stack of wrapped presents. A woman in biker boots set up a folding table with cupcakes and cookies decorated with motorcycle symbols and stars. And then someone brought out a surprise no one saw coming. A tiny beagle puppy with a red ribbon around its neck. Zarya gasped. "This little guy's name is Buddy," the writer said. "Micah once said he wanted to get you a dog. We figured it was about time." Zarya dropped to her knees, wrapping her arms around the puppy. She didn't say anything for a while, just held him close, eyes shut, as if she was afraid the moment would disappear if she moved too fast. I stood behind her, completely overwhelmed. I hadn't cried when no one showed up. I hadn't cried when I read that awful text message, but I cried now. One by one, the bikers came up to Zarya. They introduced themselves, shared stories about her dad, and handed her small gifts, books, patches, even a tiny leather jacket someone had custom made for her. She was glowing, not in the loud, over-the-top way most kids get at parties. She wasn't bouncing around or shouting, but she was standing straighter. Her eyes were brighter, and her smile never left her face. We lit the candles again, this time with a crowd around her, and they all sang. Grown men with beards and tattoos, some with missing teeth or weathered hands, saying happy birthday with voices that cracked and boomed and trembled. Zarya looked up at me once during the song, just one quick glance, but it held everything: gratitude, relief, joy, hope. When the song ended, Cal raised a soda can and said to Micah, to Zarya, and to never letting family be forgotten. They all raised their cans to family. In that moment, it no longer mattered that the yard had been empty hours earlier. It didn't matter that the cupcakes had started to melt or that some of the decorations had fallen in the wind. Zarya's birthday had become something unforgettable because love had shown up, not in the way we expected, but in the way we needed. And it came on two wheels, wearing leather, carrying memories. That night, long after the engines had gone quiet and the sun had disappeared behind the trees, I stood in the kitchen washing dishes while Zarya sat on the floor in her pajamas, cradling her new puppy in her lap. She'd named him Buddy, just like they suggested. He had already fallen asleep in her arms. She looked up at me and said, "That was the best day I've ever had." I stopped drying the plate in my hands. I just looked at her. Her hair was messy. Her cheeks were still stained with a little frosting, but she was glowing in a way I hadn't seen since before Micah died. She didn't look like a girl trying to be okay anymore. She looked like a kid who had been reminded she wasn't alone. I knelt beside her and kissed her forehead. "You made that happen," I said. "You believed someone would come. You believed Daddy's friends still remembered." She rested her cheek against the puppy's back and whispered, "I think Daddy knew." I nodded. "I think he did too." After she went to bed, I sat down with my phone and scrolled through the photos I had taken during the party. Zarya surrounded by bikers, all laughing. Cal lifting her up onto one of the bikes, her holding the patch in her hand like it was made of gold. I posted one photo, Zarya smiling with Buddy in her arms, standing in front of the motorcycles lined up along our street. I didn't add a caption. I didn't need to. The image spoke louder than any words I could write. Within an hour, it started to spread. Friends shared it. Strangers commented. Parents from the school messaged me apologies. Some admitted they had no idea what we were going through. Others confessed they hadn't known how to explain loss to their kids and had avoided the party out of discomfort or guilt. I didn't respond to all of them, but I read every message. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. What happened in the beginning of that day hurt, but what happened at the end changed everything. Micah's friends didn't just show up for Zarya. They reminded me that grief doesn't have to be quiet. It doesn't have to live in the shadows of people's discomfort. There is strength in reaching out. There is power in asking to be remembered. For 2 years, I had tried to carry everything alone. I thought that was what strength looked like. I thought protecting Zarya meant keeping the past sealed off, but she had more wisdom in her 7-year-old heart than I gave her credit for. She didn't need me to shut the world out. She needed me to help her bring it back in. Micah's death didn't erase him. Didn't end the love people had for him. It didn't erase the brotherhood he was part of, the loyalty he inspired, or the people who still carried pieces of him in their own stories. And now that love belonged to Zarya too. She wasn't a girl with no one. She was the daughter of a man who left a legacy strong enough to shake the ground 2 years after he was gone. In the days that followed, the bikers came back. Not as a surprise this time, but by choice. They brought tools and helped fix our fence. They took Zarya out for ice cream. They taught her how to polish chrome and let her wear a miniature helmet someone had custom made. She started calling Cal Uncle Cal without anyone suggesting it. No one corrected her. The house felt full again. Not the same kind of full as before, but a different kind. A new chapter. When I asked Zarya what she learned from all of it, she thought for a second and said, "Sometimes if you miss someone, it's okay to say it out loud because maybe someone else misses them too." I keep her letter in a frame on the mantle now, right next to Micah's photo. It reminds me that sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest hope, that love doesn't disappear. It just waits for the right moment to show itself again. If you're watching this and you're carrying your grief in silence, I want you to hear this clearly. Love can still find you. Even when the chairs are empty, even when people disappoint you, there are still those who will ride in when you need them most. My daughter wrote a letter, and it brought her family back. And in the process, it brought me back too. Thank you for being here. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of someone you've loved or lost, or if it gave you even a little hope, please take a moment to like the video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need it today, someone who's carrying something heavy, someone who might be waiting for a sign that they're not alone. And if you have a story of your own, about love, loss, or a moment when someone showed up just when you needed them, drop it in the comments. I read everyone, and so do others who come here looking for connection. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more real stories that speak to the heart. Until next time, take care of each other. And remember, sometimes love arrives in the most unexpected ways.